Hello everyone, this is Insight and Excite, here to discuss themes. I'm going to explore why I think themes are important and how I get annoyed when people fail to understand or even attempt to find one in the story. This is especially important to me when I watch anime or read manga and people just talk nonsense. They miss the point or they connect it with something that is legitimately unrelated. And this includes SJWs and anti-SJWs, so get off your high horse, people. Everyone with a voice ruins it for other people. So let's get started with what is a theme. A theme is the central idea that a creator is pushing for you to consider, which is then demonstrated through the central problem and resolution. Basically, if you want to know the theme of a story, look at how the problem at the start of a story is resolved or failed to be resolved by the end. It works like 95% of the time. And I say that because sometimes stories aren't really written well. And here's another thing. A theme has to be backed up with multiple examples within the story. You can't just draw one example or use how one character looks or what one character does to establish a theme. But a lot of people do. And here are two examples. On one hand, we have Goblin Slayer with that rape scene, right? And then we have the Gamergate line in Prison School.
To run a couple errands, not that it's any of your business.
Whoa, pump the brakes, Arthur Fonzarelli. Have you got a stick up your ass? Or are you one of those dumbass Gamergate creep shows?
You're, what?
The scenes themselves don't really add anything but, or at least the one on the left, doesn't do anything but have shock value, right? That's basically marketing. You want people to talk about it. But on some groups, they'll scream, "Oh, the show is a, it's a sexist pro-rape story," right? But again, that's not what the story's about. And then we get on the right, the Gamergate line, where one line now nullifies the entire show, and it even goes beyond that. It nullifies the entire production company, or at least the dubbing company, because now they're marketed as propagandist, mouthpieces. And if you are one of those people that do blame Crunchyroll for now, spreading third wave feminism or whatever you want to call it, please wait until the video, and I'm going to explain to you how, just say the way you think is wrong, all right? And again, I'm sure you hate SJWs. You're acting like one, so stop, all right? But let's move on. When people hear themes, they usually think of one-word descriptions. The theme is love, friendship, cooperation, death, transcendence, rape culture, sexist. You know what I mean. You get it. Well, those are topics, not themes. Because you're not really establishing anything, and you're not saying anything with just one-word themes. So let's take love, right? Are you saying that love is dumb? Is it inevitable? It should be restricted to certain types of people because it causes X? That love is an idea that is outside of society? That love in itself is outdated? You get what I mean. You can think of a theme as the thesis of a story. You can accept that at face value, though, because there are different lenses to view a story to find its purpose. And I push this type of reading because I don't really think people go deep into the abstract or even attempt literary theory. I actually do, so if you ever have a question, let me know. Or if you want a work analyzed in a certain lens, I might make a video on it. And believe me, you can make a post-colonial interpretation of basically anything. Or like find a racial interpretation of an anime. I know you think it's impossible. It is possible. And that's the fun of, literary works. You can view it in different ways. But I know most demographics of these type of subjects are young and they don't care about what I would call highbrow interpretation. So we'll focus on just themes. I also want to point out that finding a theme of a story is important because we have experienced examples where generalities ruin a work because it's not viewed correctly. This is where it gets abused when people call the subject matter racist, sexist, let's say anti-religious, whatever your poison. just because it has used elements of those topics in the story doesn't mean it is. You can say a story is sexist or racist if the theme supports the idea that it's being sexist or racist, and that it pushes that agenda as the superior alternative, right? And I'm sure you're all familiar with the adventures of Huckleberry Finn and the baggage it brings up. Not only did they use certain words that today we can't say, well, I'm sure you can, you can say, just it's socially frowned upon. Stop saying you can't say words. You can say them. Just there's consequences now. All right. And also that book represented a different time and has a lot of historical connotations with it, all of which that now carry more weight than just the story itself. And you can't really throw away the outside influence anymore, because people after a while, people don't care about the story itself. Now it's the effect of the story that they care about. That's what's interesting. Like if you write a story like, oh, Huckleberry did this, which led to that, no one cares. People now want to view it in a different lens. And of course, you can keep the way I'm going to focus on is just funny themes as your interpretation, but it's not very interesting, right? And now you're also neglecting a lot of useful information by doing so. But that's only, I guess I would say, that only happens when a work is old. So let's talk about some newer stories. And for our examples, something that we would probably know more of, that would be like Goblin Slayer, Kaijo, Prison School. There are countless more, but you can say like these are probably fresh in your memories, how they're been misconstrued, and I would say hijacked by groups trying to push an agenda. Now, each of these have their own baggage, which lends people the opportunity to examine the story in multiple lenses. You can say some well-intentioned, others obviously pushing something, right? But each of these stories have sometimes been taken over with is statements instead of it can be interpreted as statements. But now let's view some topical anime or manga. And if you will, I want you to pause the video after I ask a couple of questions. This is like a quiz. I'm going to ask you, what is the theme of a couple of stories. So I want you to think critically, or at least just think. All right? All right, so what is the theme of Naruto? The overarching theme for the entire story? Or for something a little bit more complicated, what is the theme of One Piece? And finally, what do you think the theme of Prison School is? Alright, so pause the video now. Alright, now that you're back, I hope you thought critically. I hope you really gave it your best. And now you can disagree with my answers if you want, but I want you to back it up in the comment section if you disagree. For Naruto, if you said hard work will fix everything, that answer is too broad because every character worked hard. Now, maybe you said be nice and listen to others. I would say that's more like the moral, but not the theme. Now, let's see if you can handle this without getting triggered. If you said the theme was you need a white savior to fix social and political attitudes by them single-handedly taking the lead and then getting support through an already established conflict. All right, calm down, guys. You see what I did there? I used a different lens to interpret the entire show. I'm not saying it's wrong, but you're neglecting the actual theme that may or may not support that interpretation. All right, so now my answer. I would say the theme that is being addressed throughout the entire show or anime or manga, is that through comparable understanding, constant communication, and shared pain, cooperation can be achieved to unite opposing forces with different goals. We see this through every fight that deals with Naruto. We see it in Zabuza, Pain, Obito, and Sasuke. And the opposite theme is proven wrong with, if you remember from the early Naruto, Gato, the Konoha elders, Madara, and Kaguya. Now, a good critical theorist would point at each fight and critique how realistic, optimistic, or naive each example actually is, because at the end of the day, it is still whoever is the strongest who wins. Alright, so now let's move on to the next one. For One Piece, what do you think the theme is? Because here's the reality. That was a trick question. Because we're not even close to finishing the story. But at this moment, we can collect some conflicts that's within the manga, and we can actually brainstorm using a couple of topics that the manga brings up. We see like freedom, choice, fighting authority, not judging others by physical features, a new era, getting over the past, not being defined by the past. Progressive stuff. However, we are seeing signs of destiny because of the D's, but we don't know the implications yet. We have an idea, and any smart reader will can connect the dots. But again, it's not wise to give a theme at the moment. Maybe in 20 years we can. Let's hope. Now, finally, prison school. If you said boys are trash, or feminazis are cancer, masculinity is evil, I want you to not kill yourself, but don't exist anymore. Can you do that for me, please? Because, yeah. So let me explain. The conflict is not just the boys being sent to the underground prison. It's the mistrust that is built when communication fails even to be used. Can we agree that the boys deserve to be punished in the beginning? Because, as we see later on, it's not that men are bad. That's the misplaced anger, which I'm sure many of you have done before. And for those who have read the ending, a little side tangent here. Tell me you wanted to kill the author. Seriously. Like, that ending, Jesus. But, again, that was the point. The ending proves it, but in the opposite way Naruto does. Through the protagonist ultimately failing, you see the truth that the author was pushing. So the theme is, and again, in my opinion, to grow into a mature, stable, independent adult. You can't trap yourself into empiricist viewpoints because it negatively impacts your relationship with others. This is proven correct by the ending when Chio tragically follows the footsteps of her older sister Mari, who seems to change her mind kind of at the end of the story. So now the story resets and the cycle of hating boys continues. So in order to find a theme, you need to take a step back. You need to have all the pieces ready. And most importantly, not be bogged down by certain character archetypes or uses of tropes. And then just mistake it as a theme. Because that doesn't help anyone. It just pushes false narratives. So I hope this little talk helped. At least finding out how to find a theme. But now let's talk about when people who don't care about themes and why they annoy me. And the reality is because they spew dumb things and then it spreads. And then more dumb people start saying it. And I guess I could say it's just basically reactionaries. But to be fair, I don't think actual groups are doing this on purpose. This is how I see it. A few people comment either with good or bad points, but then their comments get hijacked and overblown by the other side. So here's an example where reactionaries ruin a story. Let's go down with some of my favorite instances. Kaijo. For my opinion, it's an okay show. Not the best. It's your basic underdog story that features ideas of working hard, working together, challenging yourself to do better. But we didn't just see the anime for the story. We viewed it for scenes like this. And with that, you can say that it grants the possibility to interpret the show with a different lens than just just narrative structure. But here's the thing: all those scenes and shots, right, add to the theme because those movements were techniques for the sport. They were all part of the story because in universe, that was what the story was about. So you can't say the show is sexist, degrading, whatever, because the story does not support it. But again, you can say the depiction of female characters supports such ideological lenses, but now you have to say that it overshadows the central theme. Because in reality, if you are used to anime, after the first episode, you stop seeing it that way. Now you see the anime as like a fighting, as a sport anime. Like the novelty goes away unless you're unless you're super new to anime. This is your first, introduction to it. You just get used to it by the second episode. And the next example is this one actually really triggers me because I keep reading comments and then it becomes like a conspiracy theory. So we get two dubbed examples of this. When Kobayashi's Dragon Maid in Prison School. As you see, there are a couple of words that trigger certain groups. Now we hear that Crunchyroll is pushing an agenda on its audience. Either Crunchyroll or Funimation, I don't know which. Because now they changed one or two lines. I guess they're inoculating or what's the other I word? Indoctrinating. There we go. Indoctrinating the viewers to, I guess, become SJWs. Is that what they're saying? Yeah. So essentially, they used a term they don't like, which now means they're spreading propaganda. Do you see how the story has now been hijacked? The theme has now been ignored just because they focus on two lines of dialogue. It's kind of like when people get hung up because they see tits and ass and then start screaming, it's sexist. All right, guys, stop doing this. You are the problem. Stop. Again, just let the story speak for itself. Well, that was my little talk on themes. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time, guys.